Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So welcome to our second talk on Hatthaka of Olavi. Now, if you remember, Hatthaka was an Anagami lay disciple of the Buddha, and he was foremost in maintaining a retinue based on the principles of good relationships. We're calling this the Sanghahavatu, the different ways to translate that. And so, in the first series, the first talk, we went through a little bit of his life. So he was reborn in the Aviha, one of the pure abodes where Anagamis go after death, one of the places that Anagami can go after death. And we also talked about how he was handed over to the Buddha from hand to hand from the hand of Hatthālavaka to the Buddha. And then we talked about the different 8 qualities that the Buddha mentioned, 8 wonderful qualities that he had. Now, before we go on to the riddles that occurred between the Buddha and Hatthālavaka, I thought we'd take a deeper look at these 4 Sanghahavatu, or ways of maintaining an assembly. So, first I'm just going to read a quote from the text Buddha Dhamma, which is by Samdet Payutto, a very prominent scholar monk in Thailand. The translation is by Robin Moore. Generosity. So the four of these Sanghahavatu are dana, or generosity, piya vacha, kind words, attacharya, beneficial conduct, samananatta, evenness in conduct. Generosity, dana. One gives to others in an ordinary situation in order to express one's love and well-wishing, one's kindness and consideration. This is giving with loving kindness. One gives to others who are distressed or sick in order to offer assistance. This is giving with compassion. One gives to others who have performed a benefit to society, for example, to a skilled inventor, in order to offer support and encouragement. This is giving with appreciative joy. Unquote. So, Venerable Payutto is explaining how we can use the Brahmaviharas, the divine abidings, to support the power of our giving. So if we have these intentions as metta, wish for somebody to be happy here, or karuna, out of compassion, or mudita, out of appreciative joy of somebody else's accomplishments, then we have these powerful motivation behind our giving. It makes it powerful. And so remember, this is in the context of these Sanghahavatu, so it's in trying to maintain a group harmony. So especially for the leader in a group, to pay attention to giving suitable things at suitable times. The second one is this piya vacha. Quote again. One speaks kind, polite, and courteous words in ordinary situations. This is speech with loving kindness. One speaks comforting words and offers wise advice when others are confronted with difficulty. This is speech with compassion. One speaks with words of rejoicing and admiration when others perform good deeds and engage in meritorious, wholesome acts. This is speech with appreciative joy. Unquote. So again, Venerable Payutto is using the Brahmaviharas in order to explain how we can develop these kind words, piya vacha. So in the context of group leadership, then it's important to know when to apply the right sorts of encouragement for people. In this regard, I actually found another quote regarding Ajahn Sumedho. So Ajahn Sumedho was an important monk in the Thai tradition. He was born in America, and he's probably most famous for being the former abbot of Amaravati Monastery in the UK. And so he had, I'm not sure the exact number, but a large number of Western monks have ordained under him. Possibly, I'm sure it's 100 plus, possibly 200 monks have ordained under him over the course of his monastic life. And so this is a quote from a book called In My Teacher's Footsteps by Nick Scott, who is a supporter of, he's a student of Ajahn Sumedho. He's also a PhD in, I think, botany or something like that. I'm not sure the exact field. So again, this is from the book In My Teacher's Footsteps. As I drove home, my thoughts came round to Ajahn Sumedho and how they'd all said how wonderful he'd been to travel with, despite all the difficulties. I recalled to give some context, he's talking about a trip that Ajahn Sumedho took to Mount Kailash in the Himalayas, and he's been going around interviewing the people who traveled with him. And so previously, because Nick Scott lives in Ireland, he had invited Ajahn Sumedho to Ireland to go hiking. So he's talking about these two, the trip to Ireland and then the people's reflections on the trip to the Himalayas. As I drove home, my thoughts came round to Ajahn Sumedho and how they'd all said how wonderful he'd been to travel with, despite all the difficulties. I recalled that training week climbing the mountains of Connemara. The boggy slopes made the going really difficult. The intermittent rain would come at us sideways. He was 61 and not in great shape, despite the rowing machine. But there were no complaints, only expressions of appreciation. He praised the food I'd carried for our midday meal. Only you, Nick, could serve a gourmet meal on top of a mountain. Or the wonder of the view, the wildlife, or whatever. Then, when we were finally down again and sitting in the car, he turned to Mitch, my partner, at the wheel and said, "Aren't cars lovely?" There were just the three of us staying in a friend's cottage, and Mitch was not a Buddhist or inclined to religion. But Ajahn Sumedho made the unusual situation so easy. So, his reputation, he's still alive. Ajahn Sumedho was still alive, so he was very successful, right? He has a large number of students, and it seems that he was very skillful in using this piyavacha, this kind words, in order to maintain the relationships with the people around him. Going back to Samda Payuto, quoting about this service, or Attacharya. One helps others and provides support by wishing them well. These are acts of service with loving kindness. One helps others, by way of one's physical efforts, and by the way of one's wisdom and proficiency, to escape from difficulty when they are faced with hardship and affliction, say from floods or fires, or a workload exceeding their strength. These are acts of service with compassion. One helps others when they perform beneficial actions, for example, when they organize an almsgiving ceremony in a monastery, by lending a hand and encouraging their acts of goodness. These are acts of service with appreciative joy. So again, service in the three contexts, metta, karuna, and mudita. And so then we have to look at the situation with wisdom and see what kind of acts of service are required. So Samda Payuto is giving the examples of helping somebody in need. So you can think about service in the sense of volunteer work or something. In the context of an organization, it may be that somebody's overloaded. You can go and help them and to fulfill their responsibilities. Maybe they couldn't fulfill their duty on time, in a timely way, and so to go and help them to do that. Or and so also so the example for mudita, to do acts of service with mudita would be to do something wholesome together with another person. And so again, these acts of service can be empowered. The good karma that they make can be empowered by these good intentions of metta, karuna, and mudita. And so finally we come down to this samananatta, even and equal treatment. Again, this is Somdapa Piyuta speaking. Fair and just treatment of others. This factor corresponds with equanimity. Equanimity is expressed by way of this even and equal treatment, by non-favoritism, by non-discrimination, by refraining from disparaging or exploiting others, by just behavior, and by integrating oneself and living in harmony with others. So this evenness of behavior sometimes can be difficult to achieve. And so we have to look at people's the rights and responsibilities that people have in various positions in an organization. And so not to be biased based on some nationality or relationship, but to understand the people's needs, the rules of the organization, and the kind of task that needs to be accomplished. So treating people fairly is incredibly important into earning the respect of all the members of the organization. Even if one person might become upset, but eventually they will respect this sort of evenness of treatment. So, using these four methods, Hatthaka Vallabhi was able to maintain a retinue of 500 followers, 500 disciples. So, hopefully they're all meditating. Since he was in Anagami, and after going to the Brahmaloka, then he was teaching the other devas there. So we know that he was a very skilled Dhamma teacher. Before we, in the next, as I said, next talk we'll talk about the confrontation between the Buddha and Hatthālavaka. But in this talk we'll look at one more sutta where Hatthaka encounters the Buddha, and the Buddha is sitting outside, and Hatthaka asks him if he's comfortable. So this is another famous sutta about the contentment that comes from having a highly developed mind. So this translation is from the Aṅguttara Nikāya, and the translation is by Bhikkhu Bodhi. It's available on Sutta Central. Bhante, did the Blessed One sleep well? Yes, Prince, I slept well. I am one of those in the world who sleep well. But Bhante, the winter nights are cold. It is the 8-day interval, the time when snow falls. The ground trampled by the hooves of cattle is rough. The spread of leaves is thin. The leaves on the tree are sparse. The ochre robes leave one cold, and the gale wind blows cold. Yet the Blessed One says thus, Yes, Prince, I slept well. I am one of those in the world who sleep well. So, Hatthaka is observing how difficult it would be to sleep in the cold on the ground, just on a pile of leaves in the winter in India. So if you live in a sort of a more temperate country, if you live in Australia or USA, you can imagine what it's like to be sleeping on the ground in late autumn or early winter. It's probably Indian winter is a little more mild in those countries, but it's still very cold. Well then, Prince, I will question you about this matter. You should answer as you see fit. What do you think, Prince? A householder or a householder's son might have a house with a peaked roof, plastered inside and out, draft-free, with bolts fastened and shutters closed. There he might have a couch spread with rugs, blankets, and covers, with an excellent covering of antelope hide, with a canopy above, and red bolsters at both ends. An oil lamp would be burning, and his 4 wives would serve him in extremely agreeable ways. What do you think? Would he sleep well or not? Or what do you think about this? He would sleep well, Bhante. He would be one of those in the world who sleep well. So in those days, then it was possible for a rich man to have multiple wives. So then they mention a rich man with a canopied bed and all the luxuries and his 4 wives there. And would he sleep well? Hatthaka says he should sleep well. So the Buddha, of course, will refute this, and we'll see what he has to say about it. What do you think, Prince? Might there arise in that householder or householder's son bodily and mental fevers born of lust, which would torment him so that he would sleep badly? Yes, Bhante. There might arise in him such fevers that would torment him so he would sleep badly. But the Tathagata has abandoned such lust, cut it off at the root, made it like a palm stump, obliterated it, so that it is no more subject to future arising. Therefore, I have slept well. So that's the first reason why someone might not sleep well, because of being tormented by fevers of lust. So the second one. What do you think, Prince? Might there arise in that householder or householder's son bodily and mental fevers born of hatred? So, of course, then the answer is yes. So based on hatred, someone's sleep might be disturbed. Obsessed by thoughts of vengeance. 3. What do you think, Prince? Might there arise in that householder or householder's son bodily and mental fevers born of delusions, which would torment him so that he would sleep badly? Yes, Bhante. So here we can think delusions might be, normally we say that delusion will arise together with either greed or hatred. So if we're deluded about something, then we desire something in a foolish way, or we're become upset about something. We fear something that will not happen, something that's impossible, or something that might happen that we can't know if it's possible. And so this delusion is sort of spinning various kinds of possibilities before our minds. So because of this kind of thinking, then one might not sleep well. There might arise in that household or householder's son bodily and mental fevers born of delusion, which would torment him, so that he would sleep badly. But the Tathagata has abandoned such delusion, cut it off at the root, made it like a palm stump, obliterated it, so that it is no more subject to future arising. Therefore, I have slept well. And so then this sutta ends with the verse, Aṅguttara, summarizing the lesson that was just mentioned. He always sleeps well, the Brahmin who has attained Nibbana, cooled off, without acquisitions, not tainted by sensual pleasures, having cut off all attachments, having removed anguish in the heart. The peaceful one sleeps well, having attained peace of mind. So those are the main suttas that feature Hatthaka of Alavi. There's another one in the Aṅguttara Nikāya, but it repeats. It mostly repeats the contents of the following sutta, which we already have mentioned. So, as I said at the start, I really find Hatthaka of Alavi a fascinating and inspiring individual, and I think every one of these suttas that he appears in are wonderful suttas, and we can learn a lot from his qualities. What he's developed these 4 Sanghahavatu, or ways of maintaining good relationships, and also the charming stories of his life, and reappearing as a deva, and not knowing how to appear in like a physical form, accidentally appearing in a ghostly form and sinking into the ground, and even seeing the Buddha meditating on the ground, and seeing the compassion he has for the Buddha. Oh, aren't you cold, Bhante? It's a very cold time of year to be meditating on the ground, to be sleeping on the ground. Are you sure you're okay there? And so the Buddha kind of reassures him and explains how for an arahant, somebody who's destroyed all greed, hatred, and delusion, then they don't have trouble sleeping anymore. They don't have these kind of difficulties. So in our final talk in this series, we'll go through Ālavaka Sutta, at least the riddles from Ālavaka Sutta. Until then, I wish that you may all be happy, healthy, peaceful and content, and that you may attain the peace of Nibbana as swiftly as possible. Sadhu, sadhu.